This is a modernized retelling of The Pardoner's Tale from Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. The Pardoner, a less than stellar member of the group on its way to Canterbury, proceeds to explain that although greed is most clearly his vice, he preaches so well and has such a fabulous tale that everyone always falls for his guilt trip, hook, line, and sinker. Indeed, he makes enough off this little shtick that he has enough coin and goods left over to line his own pockets after reporting a fair amount of it to the Catholic Church. This pardoner is everything people in the 14th century hated about the church: pompous behavior with a penchant for simultaneously looking down on the working class and taking advantage of them. The tale unfolds as follows. Once upon a time, in the bygone days of the 14th century, in ye old, quaint Cotswold village, three men of leisure were passing their days partying. They frequented a lively pub in the center of that picturesque village, making quite the spectacle of themselves. One fateful day, a funeral procession wound its way through the cobblestone streets, and the partiers, let's call them Chad, Brad, and Trent, looked up from their pints in dismay. Brad stumbled to the street to ask a passerby who had died, and when he heard it was a friend of theirs, he brought the news back with a heavy heart and told Chad and Trent. They worked up quite a temper and created such a ruckus that the bartender, despite them buying enough liquor to pay most of his debts, almost kicked them out. Eventually, they teetered into the street, shouting that they would find death and kill him once and for all. Arm in arm, they marched through the village, and just as they were passing the final house, they almost ran over an old man. They questioned him closely about death. The old man told them that all of his friends had been taken by death, but that he himself could not find death, even though he wanted death to take him. However, he had heard that death might be found behind a tree further down the road. The men, excited at this paradoxical prospect of killing death, worked up quite the gin-soaked sweat getting to the tree. Lo and behold, death wasn't at that tree, but gold was. Lots of it. Golden coins mounded up in the underbrush beneath a tree. Well, they couldn't leave it there. They couldn't transport it by day in case someone saw them and thought they were thieves, or thought to steal the gold from them. And the three of them were really thirsty. After much debate, they agreed to draw straws, with the one who drew the shortest straw hoofing it back to town for wine and tapas. It just so happened that the youngest of them, Trent, drew that short straw. But he gracefully accepted defeat and trudged back to town for victuals. Now, while he was gone, Chad pointed out to Brad that they'd each have more gold if they split that hoard in half rather than in thirds. Brad thought about it, and he could see the wisdom of that, so they agreed to stab Trent to death, bury his body, and never speak of this again once Trent returned with the goods. As promised, Trent returned with 3 bottles of wine, bread, and cheese, but he never got to eat or drink any of it, as they killed him the moment he stepped into their golden hidey hole. Things might have gone fine for them after that, but Trent, no fool himself, had hatched a plan of his own. While Chad and Brad had plotted his demise, Trent had planned theirs. He had gone to an apothecary and asked to purchase the strongest poison money could buy because, well, he had some rather large rats to dispose of. The apothecary, with a wink and a handshake, had sold him the lethal dosage, which Trent, upon purchasing the wine, had upended into the 2 bottles he planned to give his friends. Chad and Brad thought themselves so smart, but before they had the strength to bury Trent's body, well, they paused to share one of the bottles of wine. Of course, they killed over right there on top of Trent, and Death, well, he came and collected 3 souls that day.